Season 14 is here,
Hello there.
and so are the gazillion top D4 build videos. Here's the thing though, you're shit at the game. You will most likely never push the tower or pit, and you're kinda brain dead. You're just here to have some fun and blast demons, and that, my friends, is why I'm here. Bringing you one of the absolute best builds per class, but it's also insanely fun and easy to set up. So you can spend less time scrolling through truckloads of tier lists and just fucking blast. And for the first build of the day, we have Penetrating Shot. Now, I would be recommending Death Trap simply due to the insane speed, damage, and, well, overall it being fun as fuck. But it will require a lot of different gear pieces and breakpoints to make it work. But for Pen Shot, you just need one unique, you slap on some random shit gear, and you're up and running. And if you've never played this build before, then let me paint you a picture. You fire one massive arrow, and suddenly the entire screen explodes. That's basically the build. All right, there's a bit more to it than that. The star of the show is Eaglehorn. Normally, Penetrating Shot just blasts straight through your enemies, but Eaglehorn changes everything. Using this, your arrows bounce around the screen, boomeranging all of the goddamn place, meaning you're constantly hitting enemies multiple times with the exact same shot. It's honestly one of the coolest uniques Blizzard has ever made. And after like 10 seasons of it being hot garbage, it's now one of the best ones as well. And because both you and your clone are firing penetrating shots at the same time, the screen just turns into absolute chaos. Arrows are ricocheting in every direction, freezing, poisoning, and bouncing around so much that you can barely tell what's actually killing everything anymore. But it gets even better. Depending on which version you play, you either freeze the entire screen with cold imbuement, or you load your arrows up with poison and fire absolute cannonballs that melt bosses. Both versions are great, so it mostly comes down to whether you prefer blasting through maps or deleting single targets. Then we throw Shadow Clone into the mix, effectively giving ourselves a second rogue that's also firing penetrating shots alongside us, multiplying the amount of projectiles flying around the screen and making the whole build look absolutely ridiculous. So if you're after a ranged build with satisfying sound effects, huge screen-wide clears, and probably the most satisfying arrows in the entire game, Penetrating Shot is definitely one you should try this season. Next up, we have the iconic Whirlwind Barbarian. And I mean, come on, if you've played Diablo before, then chances are you've played Whirlwind. It's been one of the most satisfying skills in the franchise for over 20 years, and this season, it's back as one of the top builds again. Sure, the Ancients build is better for pushing, but when it comes to literally anything else, nothing beats Whirlwind, and it can be played all the way from level 1 to the highest of pits, speed farming Torment 12 with ease. So, how the hell does it actually work? Pretty simple, actually. You stack up a bunch of movement speed, berserking, and fury generation, and then you just spin forever. Unlike the old versions where you'd constantly run out of fury, this one is able to sustain Whirlwind almost permanently, letting you fly through dungeons without ever stopping. But here's the cool part. You're not just spinning for damage anymore. While you're channeling Whirlwind, you're constantly spawning tornadoes all over the place. These inherit all of your Whirlwind multipliers, meaning the entire screen just fills with tornadoes that keep shredding everything around you while you keep moving. It's honestly one of the smoothest builds in the entire game. On top of that, you're permanently berserking, screaming every few seconds to juice up your damage even further. And because you're never standing still, the build just feels incredibly fluid to play. It's also one of those builds that just keeps getting smoother the better your gear becomes. More movement speed, more fury, more tornadoes. Everything scales together until you're basically vacuuming entire dungeons without ever slowing down. So if you're looking for a build where you can turn your brain off, hold down one button, fly through the map while everything explodes around you, Yeah, this one's hard to beat. Next up we have Bloodwave, and I think this might actually be the smoothest Necro build we've ever had. Unfortunately, it got some big nerfs this season, but if you're looking to play the best Necro build, then this is still it. Remember the old Bloodwave? Waiting for cooldowns, trying to make your setup work, and just hoping everything lined up? Forget about it. This version turns Bloodwave into your main skill, meaning all you're doing is spamming gigantic waves over and over again while teleporting from pack to pack. But the coolest interaction comes from Kesime's legacy. Instead of firing one Bloodwave, it splits it into two, pulling everything nearby into the middle, allowing you to double-team mobs from both sides. It gives the build a ton of clear while making it incredibly satisfying to play. On top of that, the build stacks an absurd amount of overpower. Every wave builds those stacks back up, and once all of your multipliers come together, the damage gets pretty ridiculous. It's one of the highest damage Necro builds in the game, for a reason. And unlike a lot of Necro builds that require you to stand still setting things up, this one is constantly moving. You're just blinking from pack to pack, throwing out blood waves, and watching entire screens disappear. Overall, it's just a really clean build. Tons of damage, very little setup, great mobility, and probably the easiest Necromancer build to recommend this season. Next up, we have Storm Shred. And if speed is your thing, then this build is absolutely bonkers. And don't worry about pushing, because not only is this the fastest Druid build, it's also one of the best pushing setups and incredibly easy to get online on top of that. Pressing the Shred button, you basically become an angry werewolf on crack, dashing from enemy to enemy so fast that it almost looks like you're teleporting. 1 second you're here, the next you've already shredded 3 packs further down the map. And the cool thing is that Shred isn't doing all the work by itself. The entire build revolves around generating as much spirit as possible. Why? Because the new Storm Shepherd set rewards you for constantly spending spirit, giving you a massive damage bonus as long as you keep the engine running. Once you get that going, Grizzly Rage takes things to another level. You pop it, start dashing through packs with Shred, and everything just melts while you fly across the map. Add in Lightning Storm for extra AoE, while the rest of the build keeps your cooldowns rolling, and the build feels incredibly fluid from start to finish. And that's really what makes this build so fun. You're never standing still. You're constantly moving, constantly attacking, and constantly jumping between enemies. It's probably the fastest Druid build in the game right now, and if you enjoy high APM, builds that reward aggressively punching your head on the keyboard, this one is an absolute blast. It also scales incredibly well. Even when your gear isn't amazing, it already feels good. But once you solve your spirit generation and permanent Grizzly Rage, the build turns into an entirely different monster. Next up, we have Wing Strikes. And if your goal is to put in as little effort as humanly possible, this build is for you. Seriously, it's basically an AFK build. The entire idea is to permanently stay in Arbiter form. Once you're transformed, Wing Strikes automatically seeks out nearby enemies and starts zapping them for you, meaning you're spending way more time running around than actually attacking. All you really have to do is keep Arbiter active, occasionally group enemies together, refresh a couple of buffs, and the build does the rest. Honestly, it almost feels like an auto-battler at times. You're spending more time steering your character than actually pressing damage buttons, which is surprisingly satisfying if you're tired of piano builds. The Wing Strikes automatically look for targets, making the whole playstyle ridiculously relaxing compared to most other builds. It's honestly one of those builds you can play after a long day when your brain just isn't functioning anymore. You glide through the map, everything around you gets smited by holy lightning, and before you know it, the dungeon is finished. It's definitely not the flashiest build in this video, but it might be the laziest. And sometimes, that's exactly what you want after working 10 jobs and having your 25,000 children screaming at you endlessly. It's also perfect if you have hemorrhoids because you can essentially just pop wing strikes, rub some ointment on those bad boys, and come back to a full screen of loot. Can highly recommend. Next up, we have Poison Swarm Spiritborn. And despite taking a hit this season, it's still one of the fastest and most satisfying builds in the game. If you played the old version, then yes, you can no longer permanently dash across the map like an absolute maniac. Blizz finally put a stop to that. But don't worry, it's still insanely fast. The build revolves around spawning pestilent swarms that orbit around your character, constantly poisoning and melting everything nearby. Then, instead of standing still and attacking, you're dashing from pack to pack with Rushing Claw while your swarms do most of the heavy lifting. Counterattack continuously creates more swarms. Ring of Writhing Moon keeps them circling around you, and before long, you've basically become a giant rolling poison cloud that deletes everything in its path. It's not quite as broken as it was last season, but honestly, it's still one of the best speed farming builds in Diablo 4. If you enjoy flying through maps while everything dies around you, this build is still an absolute blast. The only real difference compared to last season is that Blizzard removed the permanent dash gameplay. So instead of teleporting across the entire map forever, you're actually expected to play the game now, which admittedly is probably healthier. Next up, we have Profane Sentinel Warlock. And if you enjoy summoner builds, this one is definitely worth checking out. It got a bunch of important bug fixes this season, and because of that, it's now one of the strongest Warlock builds in the game. The idea is pretty simple. Instead of scaling one big summon, you're constantly building up an entire army of greater demons. You can have up to 5 Profane Sentinels active at once, and thanks to the Horizon Chain set, every additional greater demon makes your entire army stronger. It's also a build that gets crazier the longer a fight lasts. The more greater demons you manage to keep active, the more ridiculous the screen becomes, until it's honestly difficult to tell which demon is even yours anymore. On top of that, the build has a really interesting interaction with Brutal Aspect. Since Profane Sentinel doesn't actually benefit from attack speed, the Aspect converts all of that otherwise wasted attack speed into a massive damage multiplier instead. It's one of the main reasons this build scales so incredibly well. Meanwhile, you're constantly blinking around with Nether Step, repositioning your sentinels and keeping all of your buffs rolling while your army does the heavy lifting. The result is a surprisingly fast summoner build that's incredibly satisfying once everything comes online. Next up, we have Blizzard Sorcerer. Now, Firewall and all those burn builds are the best for pushing, but they're kinda clunky. This one, though, is definitely not clunky, and holy shit is it fun. And if you've played Blizzard before, forget everything you know about it. Normally, you'd throw down a couple of blizzards, wait for them to tick, then move on. Not anymore. Thanks to the new static field variant, Blizzard now deals its damage almost instantly. It basically turns into a giant lightning storm, allowing you to instantly nuke entire packs instead of waiting around for your damage to ramp up. The fact that it's now considered a lightning skill instead of a traditional Blizzard build also opens up a bunch of interactions that simply didn't exist before, making it feel like an entirely new build rather than just another Blizzard variant. On top of that, you're constantly triggering unstable currents, lightning procs, and splintering energy, turning what used to be a slow DOT build into a fast-paced spell spam build with massive, screen-wide AoE. And the best part? It's ridiculously easy to play. You pretty much just spam Blizzard, keep ice armor up, and watch half the screen disappear. The build even tracks enemies for you, so you barely have to aim. If you've always liked Blizzard, but hated how slow it felt, this is easily the best version we've ever had. Alright folks, those are some of the builds I recommend this season. Drop a sub, check out the build guides and content creators in the description, and I'll see you in the next one.